Roughly 100 hours after this video is posted, at an event hall near Tsuruma Park in Nagoya, Japan, a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate tournament is scheduled to conclude. That tournament, Grand Slum 17, and yes, the name of the tournament series, for reasons I cannot fathom, is Grand Slum, not Grand Slam, has received a score of 3,278 points under the LumiRank tournament tiering system, the metric by which the official Smash Ultimate ranking evaluates the scope and impact of SSBU's rankable events. In roughly 100 hours, the 308 players entering this event will be whittled down to one, a single triumphant competitor who will emerge victorious as a Smash Ultimate Major winner. The catch? It's going to be someone new, because not one player in attendance at this event has ever won a Smash Major before. For any of you not familiar with competitive Smash Bros., this is, without exaggeration, almost completely unheard of. For an event in Smash to be considered a major, traditionally it needs to pass a certain threshold of competition, such that winning the tournament is a suitably impressive accomplishment. Now exactly where that critical mass of cumulative player skill lies is a topic that will be debated back and forth for as long as humans play Smash Bros. But generally speaking, if there's enough good players at an event for it to be at major level, one of those players will probably have won a major already. Depending on how you count, Ultimate has roughly 41 players who have won majors across its competitive lifetime, of whom about 30 are still active today, spread across the three largest super regions, North America, Japan, and Europe. To really hammer in how unusual this is, the last time we saw a major with no previous major winners in attendance was Albion 4, just shy of 7 months after the game launched, and that was the first major in Europe, largely seen as the least powerful of the three super regions. The last time a Japanese major had no previous major winners attending was Umebura SP3, only 4 months after the game's launch, with that event being just the second major held in the country. So now, 6 years into Smash Bros. Ultimate, we're faced with a couple questions. Not just who of the 300 players attending Grand Slum 17 will become the 42nd player to win an Ultimate Major, but also, how did this happen? How did the metagame reach a state where a major without major winners is even possible? And what does that say about how we as a community try to quantify and evaluate the competitive scene? My name is SDG, and today I'll be taking you through Grand Slum 17, potentially the most interesting Smash Major we've ever seen. To start things off, it makes sense to begin with an explanation of why Grand Slum 17 is even considered a major in the first place, and that means going over the LumiRank TTS. I've gone over the system in more detail in a previous video, but just to iron out the basics for the purpose of this discussion, the LumiRank TTS assigns tournament scores, with a tournament score of 3,000 or greater being considered a major event. These scores derive from two main factors. First is entrant count, with each attendee at an event generally contributing 1 point to its score. The entrant value is typically a minor part in the final score though. At Grand Slum, for example, just over 9% of the tournament's score comes from the entrant total. Moreover, only some 30-odd tournaments have ever had at least 1,000 entrants in Alt's lifetime, never mind 3,000. Instead, the majority of a tournament's points usually come from having specific entrants in attendance. LumiRank keeps a database of some 1,200-odd players from across the world who are good enough that their attendance at an event grants it additional points, ranging in value from 30 points each up to 350. Players can become worth LumiRank points in a number of different ways, most straightforwardly by being ranked, either on the regional power rankings or on the official LumiRank Top 150. Looking at the entrance of Grand Slum 17, this is where a huge swath of its 3,000 plus points come from. Owing to Japan's relative dominance as the strongest region in recent competition, the last LumiRank saw the country very well represented. Consequently, 26 of the players attending Grand Slum 17 are currently ranked top 150 in the world. Their points, alongside those gained off various regional PRs, make up 52% of Grand Slum's total score. But interestingly, although this event includes dozens of players in the top 150, most of them come from pretty deep in the ranking. Of those 26 top 150 players, only 16 of them come from the top 100, and just 4 of them were ranked in the top 50. And most notably, the highest ranked player in attendance at this event is Alice, who finished the 2024.2 season at number 29. Typically when fans evaluate major tournaments, they look at metrics like the number of top 5 players in attendance, top 10 players, or even top 20. To have the highest ranked player at a major tournament be not even number 25 in the world is somewhat of an eyebrow raiser. But logically speaking, these highly ranked players are likely the frontrunners to win the event, so let's have a look at them, starting, of course, with our highest ranked player, Alice. Alice is the best Roy player in Japan, a title he's held confidently since Hikaru retired from competition in 2023, and arguably had claim to before that. You might know Alice from being one of just 5 Japanese players invited to the 2021 Smash World Tour Championships, where he placed 33rd, snagging a win on future Smash superstar Sonics, or from being one of the first Japanese players to take an offline ranked set over Japanese Giga prodigy Akola. But with some help from a rapidly improving Kazuya secondary, Alice has slowly been establishing himself as one of the biggest sleeper threats in the Japanese scene. He has wins on many familiar names like Doramigi, Raru, and Hurt, as well as a very strong record against Ashimo, a top 5 player in Japan. While he can be somewhat inconsistent, he got 65th at Super Major Smash Awesome this season after being upset by Kirby player Penguins, Alice comes into Grand Slum off of a C-tier win at Kinsai 1 and a Super Major top 8 at Maisuma Top No. 1, so he has a lot of momentum behind him. But though Alice may have been rated highest on the last ranking, my pick for the frontrunner to win Grand Slum 17 is the second highest ranked player, Falco main and LumiRank number 33 Rarakusu. Rarakusu is best known globally for beating last year's number 1 player Spargo at Golden Week premiere event Delta No. 8, using his at the time main character Donkey Kong. But since shifting DK to a secondary and picking up Steve for particularly problematic matchups, Rarakusu has gone from occasional Cinderella runs to a pretty consistent bracket threat, taking out the likes of Ashimo, Doramigi, and Snow, and winning a whopping 5 sets over Japan's most recent number 3, Raru, in the past 6 months. Unlike Alice, Rarakusu isn't riding a wave of momentum into this event. He busted out of his last major at 65th. But of all the non-major winners at this event, it's Rarakusu who's come arguably the closest to taking one before. At December's Sumabato SP54, Rarakusu would overcome Shion, Kome, and Doramigi to make winner's side grand finals of an A-tier Smash Major, only being defeated by Doramigi in a 9-game Grands. Rarakusu has shown he has what it takes to win an event of this level. The only question is, will he be able to capitalize on this opportunity? He could face some steep competition from the remaining top 50 players in attendance, LumiRank number 47 Fui and number 50 Level 1. Fui might be the most obscure of this group of players, and understandably so. While this Yoshiman has a lot of solid results, including 4 major top 8s and 2 super major top 6s, he's yet to have a breakout signature run in the way other competitors have. What he does have are solid wins on the likes of Ken, Toriguri, Doramigi, Neo, and more that prove he's at the level it takes to beat his competition in this bracket. Similarly, Level 1 is likely somewhat less known due to maining Toon Link, a character that basically exists exclusively in Japan. But Level 1's accomplishments last year definitely got his name out there, with 2 P-tier top 8s and wins on the likes of Hurt, Zachary, and Spargo. Level 1 goes through periods of fantastic runs interspersed with stretches of underperformances, but he's made top 12 at all 3 of the majors he's entered this season, so he's well poised to potentially win both his and his character's first ever Smash Ultimate Major. But there's something besides his character that sets Level 1 apart from the crowd at Grand Slum 17. Despite being the lowest ranked of the top 50 players at this tournament, Level 1 is actually the player with the highest single LumiRank point value attending the event, contributing a whopping 200 points to the tournament's overall score. And that leads into the second method for attaining LumiRank points, which accounts for the remaining 43% of Grand Slum's point total: placement points. By placing high enough at large ranked events, players can earn scores that are applied both to their previous events they attended that season, and any additional events they attend for both its remainder and the season afterwards. Level 1, for example, earned his 200 points by placing 4th at last year's P-tier event Kulon 12, and so brings Grand Slum 90 more points than if he'd otherwise just been LumiRank top 50. And Kanto Depthness Sumaho, who missed the LumiRank top 150 entirely but placed 25th at that same P-tier, brings in 50 extra points instead of 0. The intention of this system is for the TTS to be adaptive to shifts in the meta, which happen suddenly and without conforming to a neat 2-season schedule. In the last months of 2023, Fringe top 50 core and main Shattuck abruptly began turning in performances that were more characteristic of a top 15 level player. And fittingly, his updated point value increased the scores at events he attended to match his new demonstrated level of competitiveness. But, because it's the simplest and most feasible way for the system to work, all it really takes is one good event for a player to get their hands on some LumiRank points. In most competitive environments, this wouldn't be a problem. Japan is not most competitive environments. Of every region in the world where Smash Bros. Is played in tournament, Japan has demonstrated that it currently has not just the best players at top level, but the best players at every level. Japan's Smash scene runs deep, with many players filling out the top 64 or 128 seeds at its biggest events being legitimately strong enough to challenge even its best attendees. This means that, rather frequently in Japan, players get upset, new challenges rise up from the depths, and from there things get weird. At November's S-tier event Delta 9, 47th seed Ryope, a relatively little-known Snake main with strong but scattered showings and no standout runs prior, was set to lose to Byleth main Reno the round before top 64. Instead, Ryopei was able to upset Reno, as well as his opponent in Winners Top 64, Joker main Goryoka. If all went as seeded, Ryopei would then play Raru, a global-level powerhouse with previous wins on the world's best snake, Hurt. But Raru had been upset 2 rounds before, so Ryopei instead played Rosalina main Ocha, and defeated the soon-to-be LumiRank number 94 instead of facing the future number 6. To make Winners Side Top 8, Ryopei was predicted to fight Akakiksu, who'd end the season as the highest-ranked hero main at number 28, but Akak too was upset several rounds prior, leaving Ryopei to instead triumph over unranked Mii multi-main Luna Mato. Finally, in Winners Semis of the Super Major, Ryopei was set to face off versus Snow, the 3rd seed of the event and another threat on a worldwide scale, who'd beaten Hurt in bracket just 2 months prior. Instead, Ryopei fought Toriguri, the world's best banjo main and a legendary character specialist who'd upset Snow earlier that event. Toriguri was and is a powerful competitor, number 56 on the last LumiRank, but Ryopei was able to persevere and make it to winners finals of an S tier, guaranteeing that for the foreseeable future he'd be worth at least 150 points. Ryopei would subsequently lose to Mia and Raru, finishing the event at 3rd place, a career high and one he's not come close to matching in the time since. But although Ryopei would end the season ranked just 143rd, and although he hasn't made even a top 12 at a major tournament following Delta 9, because he got that magical 3rd place run back in November, he brings the 2nd most points out of the entire swath of entrants to Grand Slum 17. Ryopei's Cinderella run is an outlier for sure. Most of the placement points at Grand Slam come from 5ths or 7ths at S or A tier tournaments, but even smaller scale runs can net points for players who place highly enough, and with how volatile the Japanese scene is, a lot of players have wound up cashing in point-worthy runs. Of the 111 players on the LumiRank TTS currently worth additional points for placements, 43 are Japanese, nearly 60% more than the country with the next highest count, the United States, and with 21 of those Japanese players being worth at least 100 points. The effects of this are clearest to see in long-running series like Kansai's Sumabato. 2023's Sumabato SP34, with players like Mia, Yaura, Yoshidora, Ashimo, Doramigi, Karage, and Suna in the top 24, was a 2,200 point B+ tier. 2024's Sumabato SP46, with Mia, Yaura, Yoshidora, Ashimo, Doramigi, Karage, and Suna in the top 24, was a 4,000 point A+ tier. Now this isn't all a result of Japanese inflation. Don't Google that, by the way. Sumabato 46 had nearly 150 more entrants than Sumabato 34, and most of the players I named were considered way better in 2024 than in 2023. But there is definitely some truth to the idea that Japan's volatility leads to more Cinderella runs, and thus more players with points, which in turn makes it easier for the country to host majors, where more Cinderella runs happen and players can earn more points, so Japan can host bigger majors and players can earn more points, thus completing a sort of feedback loop. Now, if you spent a lot of time in online circles where Smash is discussed, you've probably seen some talk about this phenomenon before, and you've likely seen it framed as a wholly negative thing. I don't really agree with that. The underlying purpose of the system to better evaluate the makeups of tournaments based on meta and player developments is something that the TTS needs to be built to address somehow. And furthermore, Japan has thoroughly demonstrated its strength as a super region these past few years. If anywhere in the world deserves this many players with this many LumiRank points, Japan does. Maybe there are smaller tweaks that would overall make the scoring more agreeable. Maybe there's a different system entirely that addresses the underlying concerns more effectively. That's beyond the scope of this video. But what should be clear by now is exactly how and why Grand Slum 17 can exist in the current year as a major with no major winners attending it. This is the culmination of years of work by the Japanese player base, slowly improving and accumulating points-worthy tournament performances, all crescendoing into this event. So let's turn once again to some of the players whose efforts contributed to making this tournament what it is, and who, in turn, could potentially be rewarded with their first ever major win. After Rarkusu, I think the other major frontrunner to take this event would be Steve main Carmelo. Catching many by surprise at last year's Kulon 9 with Sumabato, where the young upstart made a huge run to 9th place, Carmelo is one of the newer faces to top-level Smash competition. Though he actually entered several big offline tournaments throughout 2023, he's most known for his sudden and prodigious ascent, falling just shy of top 8 at only his 3rd ever offline major. But though a top 8 appearance now seemed like it could happen at any moment, Carmelo would end up waiting far longer than spectators, and likely he himself anticipated. Over the rest of 2024, Carmelo would again and again make deep runs at Japanese majors. Altcore 2nd, Delta number 8, Altcore 3rd, Maisuma Japan West 24. Again and again, Carmelo would come as close as possible to making top 8 of the major, only to fall just short. Across both of the 2024 seasons, Carmelo would never miss top 32, and he would place 9th at 5 separate major events. But despite coming agonizingly close over and over, Carmelo kept on going, working through secondaries and tightening up his Steve play until finally, at December's Super Major Smash Awesome, Carmelo would triumph over T in a Game 5 set to finally make his first major top 8. Incredibly, he followed it up with another top 8 at Maisuma top number 1, this time taking wins on Japanese mainstays Yoshidora and Mia. Now, with 2 outrageously good events already under his belt, Carmelo is in a great position to make a top 20 claim for himself this year, and he definitely has the potential to win big at this event. Another player I'd be remiss not to discuss is Umeki. Though Rarakusu might be the most recent player in attendance to make a major grand finals, Umeki has also accomplished the feat before, getting the silver medal to Mia at 2022's Seibugeki 12. Umeki, more than anyone else we've discussed thus far, is a staple of the Japanese scene, playing Daisy or Peach at a top level in Japan for more than 10 years, and even becoming the TO of one of its biggest tournament series, Umebura, along the way. His performance in recent years has tended to vary widely, sometimes taking runs deep into top 8, other times petering out of majors before top 64. But recently, Umeki's been on an upswing. He got 5th place at last month's Sumabato SP55, beating Neo, Ashimo, and Shirayuki, and at Genesis X2 last week, he overcame incredible odds to beat not just Onin, a world-class representative of Steve, one of Umeki's historically toughest matchups, but also Sonics, the number 5 player in the world last year. So it's looking like both far-flung and recent history agree, Umeki has what it takes to win this major. Past this group of entrants, I think we've covered the most likely competitors to take the win at this event. Anyone beyond those already discussed definitely faces steep odds if they want to have a shot at claiming the gold medal, but as we've discussed, unlikely events regularly occur at Japanese tournaments, so if the stars align and the right bracket comes together, there are definitely many more players who could potentially walk away victorious. Shion comes to mind as a possibility, a hero main and textbook savant who made the global top 100 in his first year of offline competition and, by all accounts, seems to eat, sleep, and breathe Smash Bros. Ultimate. He's previously made it as far as 3rd place at Sumabato SP54, though the rest of his events this season have been pretty hit or miss. For someone else on a notable hot streak, you have Aegis main Fire, probably the best solo Aegis in Japan, who got their first ever major top 8 at their last event, Sumabato 55, beating Rocky, Neo, and Navy along the way. Though an A-tier win wouldn't seem particularly likely given his record, it would pretty uncannily mirror Fire's first ever breakout event, his out-of-nowhere first place finish at 2023 B-tier Jingi 2. Following them, we have a slew of character specialists who all have a notable run of some kind in recent memory, indicating that they might have a long shot at pulling off something of this caliber. Banjo main Toriguri comes into this event fired up after beating Spargo for the second time at Genesis X2, and a win here could make him arguably the lowest tiered solo main to ever take a Smash Ultimate Major, depending on how you count some of Leo's Year 1 events with Ike. Lucario main Gachipi recently got 5th place at Super Major Seibugeki 18, beating Mia and Rarakusu and taking Shuton to an incredibly close Game 5 along the way. I could see him doing something like that here. Pichu main Yonepi is on somewhat of a downswing after an underperformance at Genesis X2, but he's beaten the likes of Mia and Snow before, and his advantage state is polished enough that a win is certainly possible for him. DK main Mildna HO is coming back from an Apollo Kage win at Genesis and has, over the last 6 months, solidly established himself as potentially the best DK player in the world, even getting 9th at Super Major Seibugeki 18. For some more realistic options character-wise, Captain Falcon main Karage is bouncing back from a rough last season, not missing top 32 so far this year and even beating Raru, Kome, and Rarakusu to make 13th at his last event. Mark, the 4th Yoshi player in Japan to make a major top 8, has also been steadily improving, though his wins aren't quite on the level as these other players. For that, I'd suggest looking to Daigoro, the best Korin main in Japan following Neo's departure, with wins on Kananabe and Level 1 and a 5th place at Sumabato SP55, whose biggest weakness seems to be his insistence on playing with double disconnected Joy-Cons. The depth keeps coming. Maybe this will be the event where a relatively inactive player makes a big comeback, like Kazuya Prodigy Miru, stylish Joker Tsubaki, or veteran Wolf main Masha. Maybe this is the event where a slowly improving player finally breaks past a big hurdle. It could be worldwide best Robin Leaf, Terry main and top 100 HM last year Dynamite, or steadfastly advancing Sonic main Kurofune. Genuinely, there's probably even a world out there where Furara Ramen, a player from Kyoto who mains the unlikely trinity of Isabelle, Mr. Game & Watch, and Wii Fit Trainer, gets the right matchups and plays well enough to win this event. This tournament is chaos. its existence as a major conjures disbelief and seemingly upends so many key assumptions about Smash Bros. Tournaments themselves. So, I think it's time to actually raise the question. Is it right to call this tournament a major? Is it fair to the pantheon of Smash Ultimate Major winners that came before to induct a new member in their midst without any of them having a chance to prevent it? Would elevating the victor of this event to their status somehow diminish or make light of their hard work? Some parts of the community seem to already be drawing their lines in the sand. Sites like SmashWiki and Liquipedia have systems in place where community members vote on whether to consider borderline cases like these to be major tournaments, usually based mainly on top player presence at the event in question. And both resources are either expected to or already have ruled that Grand Slum 17 is, in fact, a national, the tier below major. And there's precedent for community opinion to override ranking evaluations of events in the past. Under the PGR, for example, Collision 2019 was considered a C tier because it had just 387 entrants, despite top players like Tweak, Light, and Mars in attendance. Most notably, though, is the example of Riptide 2022. Held in Sandusky, Ohio, Riptide 2022 drew in just shy of 800 entrants for Smash, from across the United States and Canada, and at the time, none of them were major winners. And yet, Zomba, Luis, Peebnut, Apollo-Kage, Kurama, Skittles, Jake, Send, Lima, Chase, and the tournament's eventual winner, Tilde, were enough for the tournament to safely clear the bar of the then-modern Orion Rank tiering system, making the tournament a major. However, by and large, the community nowadays seems to consider the tournament to fall below the major threshold, with most people, in my experience, not considering Tilde to be a major winner. In fact, the high value of this tournament under the Orion Rank TTS was considered one of the biggest issues with the evaluation system, one that the LumiRank team aimed to fix in their transition to the new TTS. But to go a step further, the LumiRank tournament scoring system was never intended to be the sort of marketing vehicle / measure of prestige that has taken on the role of today. From the beginning, the TTS was meant to be a tool for the algorithmic ranking to figure out how much a player's performance at a given event should factor into their overall rank for the season. Under the ranking algorithm, a 2,900 point tournament affects a player's score almost exactly as much as a 3,000 point tournament. The major threshold is ultimately meaningless, except for the context of people who watch Smash feeling the need to categorize events. At the cost of going over the edge and finally cementing myself as irredeemably pretentious, I'd like to ask, what's the point of calling some events majors? The term can mean so many different things depending on the context. An event with a lot of entrants, an event that you travel to, an event that you plan your year around, an event you're particularly excited about. But when we talk specifically about denying an event major status, due to it being too small, not difficult enough to win, then I think the core principle of this major question becomes self-apparent: exclusivity. Winning a major is supposed to be an accomplishment, a grand one, something competitors all across the world strive for. Being a major winner carries a level of prestige. It means you've faced one of the hardest brackets there is, butted heads with the fiercest competition the game can offer, and come out the other side triumphant nonetheless. Under that logic, it only makes sense that we have to be careful what we call a major. It's the syndrome approach. If everything's a major, nothing can be. But there are always and will always be edge cases. Delta number 8.5, 1 top 20 player, 8 in top 50, 2 previous major winners. This weekend's Gamescom LAN Exceedian Open, 2 top 20 players, 3 previous major winners. Next week's Cavalier Clash 6, 2 top 20 players, 3 previous major winners. Maybe you can perfectly narrow down your own criteria of where to draw the line between Grand Slum 17 and those, but not only will 100 people probably draw that line in 100 different places, they'll also give you 100 different explanations for why their line makes the most sense. Some level of uncertainty is a guarantee. So as long as the TTS, the system that needs to be the most objective, can function as intended, then I'm personally all for letting the major debates play out. But I think that approaching the question from a stance of defending the prestige of major winners is an exercise in insecurity. Sure, player A's win at a less stacked event can be less impressive than player B's win at a super major, but that kind of directly comparable example rarely occurs in the wild. You see excellent players win stacked brackets by beating a slew of low-seeded players who happen to make upsets. You see players pull up to what should on paper be free major wins and face some unanticipated resistance. What might be a cakewalk of a bracket for one player could be a nightmare for another. Trying to account for all these different factors and assemble some sort of hierarchy for whose tournament win is most impressive will just lead to discussion futilely trying to follow an asymptote into infinity. That's why I think people ought to take a step back. If the point of calling a tournament a major is to celebrate the player who wins it, then let's not get so lost in the weeds that we abandon the spirit of celebration. In that regard, Grand Slum 17 is uniquely positioned to be an exciting and rewarding tournament as a major. No major winners in attendance at a still undeniably stacked event kind of makes everyone the underdog. There are dozens of people in attendance who could feasibly make deep runs, who could believably get upset, who have a shot at pulling off an incredible feat. Whosoever wins Grand Slum 17 will have capitalized on an opportunity that no one else at that venue could, and that makes a great story. So I say this as a stats nerd who will absolutely be hypocritical and think to myself, well, actually, the next time I hear someone say DeBuzz won his first major at CEO 2023. Don't let the question of whether or not an event is a major hamper your recognition of what an accomplishment it was to win it at all. In roughly 100 hours, a player in Nagoya, Japan will win Grand Slum 17, and without a doubt, whether you see that tournament as a major or a national or teetering something right on the line, the person who wins the bracket will have accomplished something great. They will have achieved something in this game that fewer than 50 people in the past 6 years can even arguably have claim to. They will have fulfilled a dream dreamt by thousands of competitors across the globe who labor and yearn to one day bring their imagined glory to fruition. It won't be the most impressive tournament win Smash Fantasy this year, but maybe it'll be the highlight of that person's career as a player, the culmination of practice, discipline, and improvement. And maybe it will be a stepping stone to new heights, a foothold in that person's climb to the summit of competitive Smash that was previously out of reach. Whatever you think of Grand Slum 17, the person who wins it will deserve to hold their trophy high above their head, to cheer out loud in jubilant celebration. I'll be cheering alongside them, and I hope you'll be cheering too. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please take the time to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Most of the people watching right now aren't, and any bit of support really helps. My name has been SDG, and I'll see you later.